Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here on this week's episode 364. On this episode, we are going to be tapping down some of the list of news that is out there. Not too much, but just a couple of things to be aware of. And then I'm going to really kind of dive in a little bit into the publishing world just a tad. Something I've talked about a lot, I feel like, in the past, but really want to focus on a couple things just recently that I think is pretty significant in the world of Star Wars. But first, of course, thanks to all my patrons over on patreon.com. If you're interested in supporting the show that way, go check it out, Inside the Force on Patreon. Got some tiers there. Got some merch on there. But of course, we're here on YouTube as well as on all podcast feeds. All of our shows currently are on that feed. But in the works, got some things in the works on really how to focus on where and when some content's going to be coming. So I'll let my patrons know that first, and then I will start trying to get this more locked down, working with some of my contributors like Hannah and Corey and Martin on that. So look for that here soon. But I know a lot of you have been here for a while, so continue to appreciate that and hit that subscribe on YouTube, or keep liking us and subscribing on the podcast feeds. If you're new, appreciate it. Thanks for checking us out. Got some great stuff going on, and hope you enjoy listening to me talk Star Wars. And we'll continue to do so because I'm loving a lot of stuff that's coming out here right now, especially some of these books that I'm into right now. This is what I'll talk about a little bit more here in a little while. But first, some news. I think the first thing, and I mentioned this on the last show right before Comic-Con, but San Diego Comic-Con happened last weekend, basically. A lot of big reveals, obviously, on the DC side, if you're big on the movies with Black Adam and Shazam. But also on Marvel, the MCU got phase 5 and 6 kind of laid out. Pretty exciting. Now, as far as Lucasfilm goes, the only thing really there, I know they had an exhibit there where you can see, costumes and stuff from some of the shows, but Lucasfilm really only had a publishing panel going on there that highlighted the upcoming releases in the comics and novels, mainly centered on, to be honest, I didn't think it was that exciting because I feel like it was a lot of stuff that we already kind of knew about. High Republic and mainly the Dark Horse comics that we were getting was really the main focus. Because I think we know pretty much the rest of the novels that are coming out this year and even partly into next year. But I don't think we knew much about exactly what some of these Dark Horse comics are going to be. High Republic Phase 2 is getting ready to kick off. So the main thing was what stories are coming from there. So the panel had 8 Star Wars authors that were present there. Kristen Baver, Cecile Castellucci, Adam Christopher, Claudia Gray, George Mann, Beth Revis, Kevin Scott, and Kirsten White. So they revealed their books and comics and whatnot. So the first big one was George Mann's book coming out called The Battle of Jedha, which is pretty interesting. Going back to Jedha, the planet we saw in Rogue One, that was basically the first planet to be somewhat destroyed by the Death Star. There's a book coming out for that, as well as no. So then High Republic Adventures. So the Adventures line is what IDW was producing and publishing over the course of the last few years. It's kind of the all ages level of comics. So Dark Horse is now going to start publishing the Adventure series for not just Star Wars, the High Republic Adventures, but Star Wars Adventures as well. So they revealed several issues of covers for that. Daniel Jose Older's Star Wars Adventure, the High Republic Adventures issue 1. There's a cover out for that. They put out the High Republic covers for Phase 2. That's on the Marvel side. That's pretty much the ones I'm reading. I'm probably not going to be reading a lot of darker stuff. I never really read any of the IDW. I'm more into just the Marvel line. And then they had a full cover reveal for the Princess and the Scoundrel novel that Beth Revis is putting out next month. And then Dark Horse is doing a series called Hyperspace Stories. I think it's a limited series, but the cover is Clone Wars based, it looks like. During the time of the Clone Wars. Pretty interesting there. They also showed number 2 of Hyperspace Stories, which is Luke and Leia. So it looks like it's time jumping a little bit. And then there is a book coming out by Kristen Baver called Star Wars 100 Objects. Pretty interesting. The reveal on Star Wars, the reveal on StarWars.com is in one of the pages is the bust of Count Dooku, the statue head that we see in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan's talking to Joe Castanew there about the Lost 20. And then there's a book coming out called, basically centered around Life Day, a pop-up book. So those were the big reveals. There might have been a couple more, but not as big as these. Those are the big reveals from San Diego Comic-Con's Lucasfilm panel. Again, nothing huge that we don't really already know, but just mainly the covers and some of the start dates. I still don't see any really start dates for the Dark Horse comics, so I've been kind of paying attention every week to see when one of these starts dropping, but don't really know. They also got first looks at cover art for Star Wars 29, Vader 29, Afra 26, Hunters 28, Mandalorian number 5, Han and Chewie number 7. Number 7 for Han and Chewie, that's good because it seems like, this looks like it's going to be more of an ongoing series there instead of just a limited 5-6 issue run. So interesting there. Cover for Princess and the Scoundrels is really good. Leia and Han. It looks like Carrie and Harrison, which is awesome. So there you go. More publishing news I'm sure will be revealed coming soon, but more will be coming probably D23, which D23 is in August, I believe. Let's see. Just want to make sure because that is next month, I believe. 23 Expo, actually September 9, 10, 11. So it's in September. So a couple more months. Actually, it's almost the 1st of August, right? So a little over a month. D23, which is going to be expected to be more reveals, not just on Disney, but on Lucasfilm as well. So I'm sure some of that will be saved for that. Okay, a couple other bits of news. Light and Magic, which is the documentary series on Disney Plus about the beginnings of Industrial Light and Magic, is out now on Disney Plus. I am going to dive into that this weekend. Can't wait to watch that. Really want to get my daughters to to watch that as well, to see how that all started, and the birth of visual effects, basically. I'm not sure. I haven't really read much about it or looked into it much, so I'm really going in it blind. I don't really know exactly who's in it and how much George is in it. I just know it's about the beginnings of ILM, so can't wait to watch that. Really, really interested about that. So I'll talk more about that probably next week as I try to finish that this weekend. Okay, so unfortunate news came out just the other day. KOTOR, which is what most of the gamers call it, Knights of the Old Republic. There was an announcement a while back about a remake of the game, which a lot of people got excited for. Now, again, I haven't really played that game. I just never gotten into turn-based combat. Final Fantasy, I think, was like that mostly, where you press a button and you hit or throw something at your opponent, and then your opponent takes a turn, and so there's not like constant fighting in it. So I never got into the games like that. KOTOR was like that, but I was excited about this remake because it sounded like they were making more of a adventure game and role-playing game in a sense, RPG or whatever. But I don't think, and the beauty of it is I think it was going to end up being canon and start canonizing some of these characters from KOTOR that people are excited about. I mean, there was even, I believe it was Darth Revan that was in the ad for it. So unfortunately, the game is now indefinitely delayed. Apparently, the rumor is that the game was presented to Lucasfilm and possibly was even expected to be out later this year. Don't know how real that is, but holidays of 2022 was possibly the release date for this game. But apparently after the presentation, shortly after, the designers of the game were let go. So now they're, I guess, scrambling to possibly go in a different direction. So apparently the rumor is that the game is now going to be delayed until 2024. So 2 more years. So that's completely unfortunate. I do want the game to be right. So maybe they didn't feel like the game was at that level to be released to the public, and I'm sure they don't really want to settle. So they're apparently going to the drawing board, back to the drawing board, and going to rethink of how this game is made and finished. So I guess, at this point, we don't get a lot of games, obviously, from Star Wars. We got Jedi Fallen Order, and I think quickly after that we got Squadrons, which I never really got into Squadrons that much. I know based on this news, I see a lot of people posting that they just want Battlefront 3, which I doubt we'll get. We may, but I don't think so. Battlefront 2 was pretty successful, and everybody was playing that, and there's constant updates to that. I don't know if they're updating it anymore, but there were pretty constant updates for that game as you went along. There were a lot of DLCs that you can get. So I don't know how much this really affects me. Again, I wasn't a big gamer of KOTOR. I mean, I want any Star Wars game, but I do want it to be really good, and I want it to be, able to consume my time a lot. Squadrons, that was the thing about Squadrons, is I felt like I breezed through the campaign so quickly, and that was I feel like just made to be more of a multiplayer game, and I'm not really a multiplayer guy anymore. So I'd rather take my time and really spend time exploring and, executing some of these missions and collecting as many things as I can. That's why I think the open world Star Wars, I can't wait for that. I just want to be able to just travel around and explore and do different things. So I'm more interested in something like that anyway. KOTOR, I just didn't know if I was going to be into that anyway, but I definitely just want more Star Wars games quicker. And that's a really big thing too, is I don't quite understand what's taking so long for these games. I feel like the Assassin's Creed series. I feel like we get a new Assassin's Creed game every year almost. And they're fantastic games. I feel like they're spitting out, whatever. I'm trying to think of another series. Halo. I mean, I know Halo takes a while, but that is not, I think, due to the fact that you're just always producing that game. I think they take some time in between to produce them. But, I feel like we've gotten several of those already, and we're going to probably get more of those games. But, Lucasfilm has been purchased by Disney now for 10 years now, I believe, right? It'll be 10 years this fall, 2012. So, we haven't really, 10 years, we haven't really got that many games. So, again, I don't know the full details, obviously, of all that, but I just feel like we should be getting more and quicker. But maybe we'll see. Maybe it will. Andor, just a reminder, of course, August is just next week, right around the corner. And then the end of August, we will start getting Andor. Can't wait for that. We'll be doing some deep diving on the Mandalore podcast. I'll be on there with Martin Donison, aka Cyber Ren. We'll be deep diving into those episodes. All 12 of those episodes. I believe it was 12. Yeah, I'm getting mixed up with something else. All 12 episodes of Andor. At some point, the Bad Batch is going to be starting up again. I think they released that date, but I don't have it written down right here. Lots of good stuff coming here this fall. So I'll be talking about it on the show and getting other opinions on it. So Andor, I'm stoked about Andor. I really am. I really can't wait to watch that. I'll be watching Rogue One a few times leading up to it. My daughter wants to rewatch Rogue One because she's not really too excited about Andor. I think, it looks a lot heavier than most of these other shows. So, and high on the, political side as well. So I'm not sure how much she's really going to be into that, but it is Star Wars, and I think she'll still gravitate towards something. Can't wait for that. Okay. As far as release schedule goes on the novels, Padawan, the Obi-Wan book, another Obi-Wan book, just came out this past week. So that is out there now if you want to go check that out. It's a young adult novel. And then next month, August 16th, you got The Princess and the Scoundrel. Really looking forward to that. A lot of excerpts getting released on that right now. A lot to do with Luke and Leia. Last episode, I talked about that a little bit. If you missed that, go check that out. High Republic Path of Deceit, October 4th. High Republic Convergence, November 15th. And then High Republic Path of Vengeance, which ends Phase 2. That's in May 2nd. So those are your novels that are coming out. Comics next week, Dr. Aphra 22, Obi-Wan number 3, Halcyon Legacy number 5 is out on August 3rd. August 10th, you got Bounty Hunters 26 and Han Solo and Chewbacca number 5. August 17th, Star Wars 26, Mandalorian number 2. And then August 24th, you got Vader 26 and Aphra 23. So that's pretty much your production lineup of comics in August. Again, I don't know for sure when when Dark Horse is going to be starting to release books, but I'll probably put those on my list as soon as I get those release dates. All right, so the last topic I want to kind of get into a little bit. I feel like this is probably going to be a shorter episode, guys, so not too much to talk about on the news side. So I just wanted to briefly mention something on the publishing side, and mainly, the significance of some of these stories, because I'm in the middle right now of a book called Shadow of the Sith. It's actually on my shelf somewhere. I think it's over. Yeah, it's a thick book way back there. It's actually really thick. It's actually a long book. I'm doing the audio book as well, and I want to say it was like 15, 16 hours, which is pretty long for these novels. But I got to say the significance. I'm only halfway through it, and the significance of this book is incredible. And this made me think about this also, because last week I was talking about that scene in The Princess and the Scoundrel between Luke and Leia when they're talking during Return of the Jedi, at the end of the Return of the Jedi, after he burns his father and has his funeral, he goes back and has a conversation with Leia, basically talking about his family and stuff like that. Now, there's another excerpt that came out that the headline that I read was, basically Luke's reaction to Leia and Han's wedding announcement, basically. And, he's fine, obviously, with it. He was happy for her, but they get into this conversation where Luke is asking about whether or not she actually wants to marry him and have kids, or basically go with him around the galaxy, search for these Jedi and Sith artifacts, and have him train her in the ways of the Force. So Leia has a big decision at this point. Do I go with my brother, or do I get married? Obviously, we know what she chooses. But just to know that conversation happened, and to know that Luke really wanted her to join him and basically do this thing together. Now, Leia even came back and countered and said, why don't you bring the Jedi Order back to be a significant part of the government, and I'll help run the government, being a senator or whatever, and maybe possibly one day chancellor. Luke's basically said no. So right there was a big opportunity for them to work together. And honestly, I think I might have said this last week or on a Beyond the Saga, but I thought how cool it'd be, if episode 7 actually started with a fully functioning Jedi Academy with Luke as the Grand Master on Coruscant, and then Leia in the Senate as the Supreme Chancellor. So you have the Skywalker twins basically running the two most important organizations in the galaxy, the New Republic and the New Jedi Order. I just think that would have been, I don't know a Star Wars fan that wouldn't want to see that. So I obviously we're never going to get that, but that would have been really, really, really cool to see and hear and read or whatever. So it looks like that conversation basically happened, that this path was presented to both of them by Leia. Leia asked Luke to do this, to start the Jedi Order again and bring it back to the Republic and be a part of the Republic. So I wish that would have happened, but it didn't. That's fine. I get it. But to know these conversations had taken place is a pretty big, significant contribution to these characters, I believe. Basically how this thing ended up. And now, like I said, I'm in Shadow of the Sith. And man, I'm learning so much. And the storyline in this thing is just so significant to the sequel trilogy. It really changes the way you see the storylines and the characters in those movies. And I could be the only one. I don't think I am, but I could be the only one that thinks this. But it's the significance of these novels have really started increasing. Now, let me describe kind of what my thinking about that. I remember years ago when Casey and I were talking on here about the significance of these novels and what they're willing to do, they as in Lucasfilm, what would they be willing to do in these novels? Would they actually be willing to kill a major character? Would they, change something, a quality about a character that would kind of change your perception of them going forward? Would they introduce, a significant event that had repercussions on basically how another event in the movies and whatnot are viewed? So there's definitely different things you can do to change, a perception of a movie. Let's just take an example real quick with a couple characters. For one, let's say the novel Star Wars Phasma, right? Came out before The Last Jedi, and it really basically gave us Phasma's backstory from, the planet she's from, how she met Brendel Hux, how she got into the First Order, things like that. So we got a full background of her. But the thing about it is you didn't have to read that book in order to see her in the movies and understand who she was. I think that I think the significance plays in is whether or not it changes at all who she is or how you perceive her. I don't think that does that. I think it just adds a backstory to her so you kind of understand just a little more about her background. Another book that Beth Revis actually wrote, who's writing Princess and the Scoundrel, it's called Rebel Rising. It's about Jyn Erso and Saul Gerrera and the partisans. And again, they're interesting stories and interesting background of Jyn and how Saul found her and met her or whatever and trained her and basically gave her a home after, her mother died, her father got dragged into building the Death Star. But do you need that? Is it significant enough to change how she is in Rogue One or how you perceive her? I don't believe it does. I think it just adds another adventure story to her resume that you can actually enjoy and learn more about the character, and that's it. So for a while, these novels were coming out like that, and they were not as significant to the character development that eventually made its way into the movies. So now comes Shadow of the Sith. And I want to say that, again, books like with Phasma and with Jyn, you're messing with newer characters. So there's not a lot of backstory there. There's not a lot of history there. But when you're writing a book like Shadow of the Sith, and your main characters are Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian, these are characters that have been around for 40 plus years. So it does change a lot when you start adding to their characters, when you start adding events and situations and different discoveries that they have. You are changing, I believe, a lot of what happens mentally with these characters, and therefore how I perceive them as they interact with other characters and events in the movies. So this book, I'm not going to spoil anything, but this book has a lot to do with Luke. Basically, this is the backstory of what we're hearing in The Rise of Skywalker, right? With Ochi of Bastoon, with the dagger, with Rey and her parents. I mean, this is basically showing how the parents, got away from Palpatine, had Rey, and how they escape, I guess. I haven't gotten that far yet, but basically how they end up getting Rey to Jakku and then, of course, taking off without her. So there's a lot of story there. And then there's Luke trying to, with Lando's help, find Exegol. I mean, so this is 13 years still before The Force Awakens. So a lot of time still to go on. And, Ben's getting trained at Luke's academy. But there is just a level of importance, I feel like, with this novel that is unlike any other Star Wars novel I've read. This is by far the most significant novel as far as characters and story and events. This is the most significant one I've read in relation to the movies. So I can't wait to do a big deep dive in it with Hannah. But right now, I just feel like it's unfortunate in a sense that a lot of these really strong characters that are getting more backstories and more development are not going to be, consumed by all the Star Wars fans. You can pretty much bank that every Star Wars fan is going to watch a Star Wars movie in the theaters when it comes out. You're pretty much guaranteed that they'll watch any live action show that Disney Plus puts out there. I say live action because I don't think everybody watches, Bad Batch, the animated shows. So I would say anything live action, you could pretty much bet that 99% of Star Wars fans are watching that. You're not going to get a lot. I don't know what the percentage is, but you're not going to get a lot of Star Wars fans that are constantly up and reading with the comics and the novels. I just don't think you are. I'd be hard pressed to say 50%. I don't think it's that high either. I think it's more, could be more like 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 people are continuing their Star Wars consumption through the publishing world. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can probably say 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 5 people you ask, they're probably, so that's 20%. They're probably into the books and the novels. So only a handful of them are actually going to experience, Shadow of the Sith and, get this backstory with Luke and Lando and Rey and her parents. It really does, so far in a way, explain a lot of what we see in The Force Awakens, which, not really, you don't really need it in The Force Awakens, but if you start there, but I mean, you really understand what's happening in The Rise of Skywalker with this book. Now, I guess the only thing that's crazy too is that, so it's almost 3 years since the release of The Rise of Skywalker, right? It came out December of 2019, so it's 2.5 years right now. This book just came out. Because of the time length, it does really seem like this book went into production after the movie came out, because they felt like there were some plot holes that needed to be explained. And that part is, again, I think is unfortunate. To center a story based on explaining more and fixing what you did, I think is, again, I don't think it's the right way to go about it. But maybe they did have this backstory and they just didn't have a writer yet, and they waited till the movie came out to actually get that writer going. I guess that's possible, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems as, a year went by, they were like, oh, should fix this. We should fix these issues that we're seeing from the fans, that, there wasn't enough backstory of Rey. There wasn't much explanation about her parents. Rey finding the Jedi text and then Luke's journal regarding Exegol and the Wayfinders, and the fact that Luke and Lando went looking for them. I mean, that's pretty huge to discover. And like I said, I'm only halfway through it, so I'm sure there's even going to be more. But it doesn't seem like it's going to let up either, because, like I said, Princess and the Scoundrel's coming out, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot there with Han and Leia that maybe is pretty significant. You got the Obi-Wan novel I just mentioned that just came out. You're getting a lot of Obi-Wan. So, your attitudes and thoughts about him could be changing with all that content. And so I'm not, other than the High Republic books, I'm not sure what other books are coming beyond that yet, but that is, these last two, The Princess and the Scoundrel, which I haven't got into yet, obviously I'll be getting into that, but Shadow of the Sith, these books are really adding to our main characters. The Skywalkers that I didn't think they were going to do after the Rise of Skywalker. You always keep hearing, we're going to get away from the Skywalker saga. So, but this is very much still the Skywalker saga. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, just put that out there, that I feel like these books that are coming out just play a big role. They're starting to play a bigger role with these characters, especially these legacy characters, and how, how their characters are in these books, and how it contributes to what we see later in the movies. So anyway, I hope you, I'm not just, I definitely want to say I'm not knocking the publishing or knocking the novels or anything like that. I want all of it, and I will consume all of it. So it doesn't really matter to me on that end. But it's just really cool. It's just, again, really interesting how much it changes for me, in a way, how I perceive these characters, and what it does when it changes when I watch, like right now, when I watch A New Hope, based on after seeing the Obi-Wan series. It does change for me. It does change a little bit of how I see Obi-Wan in that movie, So I like that. I like being able to rewatch a movie like that now and have a different perspective of these characters and different understanding of the backstories and stuff like that. So, so keep them coming. Still, I know they're still trying to fill in the gaps. So just keep that coming. I think it's really cool. All right. Let me know what you think right here on YouTube or on the podcast feeds. Like I said, we are on all the podcast feeds, and youtube.com/Inside the Force. If you want to go there and subscribe and watch us talking about Star Wars with all of our shows, Council Sessions, Beyond the Saga, Masters of the Order, Dark Knowledge. Go there and check those out. We got commentaries on there as well. We're going to be starting to do a whole round of the commentaries again here soon, so look for that. Of course, patreon.com if you want to contribute to the show. Patreon.com/Inside the Force. All that info is right down here at the bottom. So go check that out. And the Mandalore podcast will be coming back when Andor starts, and shortly after that first episode. Real quick, I wanted to, let's see, from the last episode. Thrawn Attic mentioned great discussion regarding Luke and Leia that time gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens for Luke and Leia is always very interesting. You can do much more because it's the biggest time gap we have in the Star Wars between any films or trilogies. Correct, 30 years. I really enjoyed Bloodline book with Leia and the struggle she had being in the Senate, and it kind of mirroring Padme's same struggles, with like a bit of an earlier time period with Leia Jedi training and deciding to go back to politics, and the start of the new Senate, perhaps get a bit more Mothma in that time period maybe. Lastly, I think all I want is more Luke temple stories, including Jedi training, finding temples and relics. Totally agree. I think a lot of that is coming. I do think that there will probably be more novels and/or comics, because I think what's going to happen. I could be totally wrong, but as soon as the Star Wars series reaches Return of the Jedi, right now it's in between Empire and Jedi, filling that year gap. I believe right after it reaches Return of the Jedi, they're going to continue on right after Return of the Jedi and start filling in some stories there. I believe that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be more about how Leia gets back into the New Republic and how Luke starts searching for these Jedi relics. Now, you got to remember too, maybe it's a year after Return of the Jedi, because there's still a year worth of fighting that's going on. The war actually doesn't end until a year later at the Battle of Jakku. So, a lot of that's covered in the Aftermath series from Chuck Wendig. So they could just like skip that part and then go right after the Battle of Jakku, which would make sense. But anyway, great comments there. Of course, yeah, love the Bloodline book as well. I believe takes place about 6 years or so. I think 6 years before Force Awakens, so it's about 7 years after the Shadow of the Sith. So, anyway, all right. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for listening. Really, really appreciate it. Again, appreciate all my patrons, especially you master patrons out there. And have a great weekend. Go watch some Star Wars. Go enjoy Star Wars. Be back next week with all new shows, and hope you enjoy them. Take care. Have a great weekend. May the Force be with you.